Good evening. I'm Morton Halperin. I'm the chair of the J Street Board, and it is my sincere pleasure to welcome you to tonight's gala event honoring my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Carol Winograd. To see this packed room tonight is a testament to our love and respect for Carol and to the remarkable impact she has had on J Street. Thank you. It is fitting that we are here in San Francisco to honor Carol at the first ever National Summit on the West Coast. This is an important moment for Israel and for the two-state solution. Surrounded by old friends and new global leaders and experts in the field, as well as the passionate people from J Street U, we have spent this weekend wrestling with a number of significant questions and challenges that now confront our movement. This gathering is undeniable evidence of J Street's growing power and reach. From coast to coast, we have truly built a constituency for a two-state solution. We have achieved a great deal in the past year and in the past 6 years, and there is much to be proud of. But we cannot hide the fact that we are meeting at a moment of great uncertainty. Indeed, when one is dealing with the Middle East, one is always meeting at a moment of great uncertainty. This time last year, we were more hopeful. Secretary of State Kerry had launched a bold and ambitious effort to help Israel and the Palestinians end their conflict. With J Street's support and encouragement, thousands of American Jews rallied in their communities behind this initiative, backing the difficult compromises that a two-state solution would require. And I think for the first time, we had an American administration pushing the Israelis and the Palestinians towards a settlement without any backlash from parts of the American Jewish community. The community, I think, under strong pressure from J Street, rallied to support the initiative. But we know that despite the Secretary's efforts, despite the political support in this country for that, the talks did not succeed. And therefore, we need to chart a path forward for those of us who believe in the essential two-state solution. We cannot succumb to disappointment, frustration, and despair. And this weekend's gathering has left me with no doubt that working together, we will find a way forward. We have begun to confront the fact that we can no longer tolerate the corrosive effect of new settlements in occupied territory. J Street has called upon the American government to take a more vigorous response to the continued buildup of the settlements. In the days ahead, we will need to spell out what we think that American response should be. And at the same time, we will be supporting the administration's efforts to work with the new Palestinian government as we watch that situation unfold, and to support their efforts to secure an agreement with Iran which will prevent an Iranian nuclear program. And we must accelerate the process of consulting with our friends in the United States and in Israel about how to best support the forces in Israel working for peace and a two-state solution. So there is much to do, but this evening we are here to celebrate Carol, so welcome to you all. Enjoy the evening. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Martin Wiener. Rabbi?
Friends, our Jewish tradition calls upon us to be ever mindful of the creative spirit on the earth we inherit and inhabit. We are reminded to be grateful for the food we enjoy, the source of energy for our lives. It is what enables us to continue our vital struggle for tikkun olam, repairing a fragile and broken world so very much in need of peace. Please, if you would take a roll and join with me in the traditional blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Friends, our next speaker needs no introduction, but still I will try to do him justice because none of us would be here without Jeremy Ben-Ami. I first met Jeremy at a program in Colorado where he admirably defended his vision for peace against some very vocal critics. I would add that Jeremy and I have a rather unusual connection through, of all things, baseball. Some of you know that a while back, Jeremy coached his son's Little League baseball team in Washington, D.C. My grandson was on that team. So you see, this evening, I may be the only person who is able to say, I know Jeremy as my grandson's Little League coach. Now on to more serious and significant introductory remarks. Jeremy has over 3 decades of experience in politics, including serving in the White House as the Deputy Domestic Policy Advisor to President Clinton. He was Howard Dean's National Policy Director in 2004 and has worked on numerous national, state, and local campaigns. His family background is not unlike those of Israel's presidents and prime ministers. His great-grandparents were a part of the first Aliyah over 130 years ago and were among the first settlers in Petach Tikva. His grandparents were one of the founding families of Tel Aviv, and his father was a leader in the Irgun, fighting to secure Israel's independence and to rescue thousands of European Jews. But Jeremy realized as a young man that many generations later, the Israel that his family helped to build is still incomplete. It is still without internationally recognized borders. It is still at war with many of its neighbors. And so long as it occupies another people, its future as a democratic and Jewish homeland is at risk. As an American, he has made it his mission to fix the broken politics around Israel in this country and to support the American leadership necessary to help Israel and the Palestinians finally end their conflict through a 2-state solution. As the founder and president of J Street, Jeremy has built a national movement from coast to coast, giving tens of thousands of pro-Israel, pro-peace Americans a place to call home. His analysis of the Middle East and the American Jewish community is sought in Washington and Israel alike. He has been selected numerous times by the Jewish Daily Forward as part of the Forward 50, their compilation of the most influential Jewish Americans. And just last week, he was again included on the Jerusalem Post's list of 50 most influential Jews. Jeremy, as we know, is the author of A New Voice for Israel, and for all of us gathered here, he is certainly that and more. He is our vision, a fierce opponent of what he calls the scourge of skepticism, and a champion for a future that all Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans can be proud of. Please join me in welcoming Jeremy Ben-Ami.
So thanks so much, Mort, and thanks, Marty, for those kind words. The reason that I'm no longer coaching my son's Little League team is actually this summit. This was the straw that broke the camel's back on my schedule, and I said I'm just missing too many games, and I'm proud to report that they won their first game of the season yesterday, so an exciting weekend. It's been quite a 24 hours for us who have been gathered this weekend at our first West Coast National Summit, grappling with some very, very difficult questions that this challenging moment poses for all of us who are searching for a resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I hope those of you who spent the day with us found the program not just challenging, but illuminating as we try to point the path forward for our movement and for the organization. But we're gathered this evening to honor our good friend and our colleague, Dr. Carol Winograd, and to hear some thoughts and to hear some thoughts from two leading American and Israeli politicians on the subject, Congresswoman Jackie Speier and member of Knesset Merav Michaeli. We're looking forward to hearing from both of them. Before we get to our program, I do want to take a moment and to thank all of those who have been involved in putting together this incredible weekend, and especially those who have supported this lovely gala dinner. In your programs, you have a complete list of all of the sponsors of our event, as well as the members of the honorary host committee for Dr. Winograd. We also have lists of J Street's board of directors and our Tikva Society. All of these tremendous supporters of J Street and admirers of Carol deserve a round of applause to say thank you for your tremendous contributions towards this successful event. I also want to thank the J Street staff who've put this evening together, in particular our wonderful finance team here in the Bay Area, Marina Javor, who was on point for the event, and Rachel Eisner, who is our finance director. If they could just stand up wherever they are. And one final time, I did this last night, I'm going to ask it one more time. Just please join me in thanking the entire J Street staff for all that they do to help put this together. I have one final acknowledgement I want to share with all of you this evening, and that is from America's ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, who has written a lovely note to share with us and with Carol this evening. It reads, "Dear J Street leadership and members, kol hakavod to J Street on the occasion of its national summit in San Francisco, and to Dr. Carol Winograd on being honored at this year's event. I also want to pay tribute to all of J Street's leadership. It is a group of dedicated community leaders, indefatigable, I practiced that several times, advocates, and tireless public servants, including some with whom I have been honored to serve in government. I applaud J Street for its efforts to help build stronger constituencies for peace and for its support of U.S. leadership in the quest for Middle East peace and security. 2 states for 2 peoples, as President Obama told Israelis last March in Jerusalem, that is where peace negotiations must lead. This administration has worked tirelessly for a 2-state solution, and we appreciate J Street's good work toward this shared goal. As Vice President Biden told J Street last fall, America's support for Israel's security is unshakable, period. With America at its side, Israel will never stand alone. Sincerely, Samantha J. Power." As we've been discussing all day today, this is a challenging time for the pro-Israel, pro-peace movement. We recognize that with the failure of Secretary of State Kerry's efforts, not only the countries and the leaders involved need to reassess their next steps, so too does our movement. Even, however, as we assess our steps, we reaffirm the core of our mission, our principles, and our strategy. We came together 6 years ago to promote a secure and democratic home for the Jewish people by advocating for a 2-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And we are giving voice now in American politics and in the Jewish communal conversation to the premise that to be pro-Israel doesn't require supporting every policy of the government of Israel. We are proud of the work we have done to build a political voice for many in the United States who have felt they didn't have a home in the debate over Israel in this country. Today, we are a movement of 180,000 people that has established its presence on the Jewish communal scene and its impact on the political world. We have the largest pro-Israel political action committee in the country, endorsing 84 House and Senate candidates. We have a rabbinic cabinet of over 800 clergy, and we have one of the most exciting and energetic college campus programs related to Israel in J Street U, with chapters on 60 campuses and thousands of activists nationwide. But I have to say that there is one person I've met over the past 6 years who has even more energy than our student leaders. And that's our honoree tonight, Dr. Carol Winograd. Now, I've had the good fortune over the last few years to get to know quite a few people in the Jewish community, coast to coast, many of whom are devoting their lives to the cause of peace and justice. But few hold a candle to Carol. Carol, as a member of J Street's board and now our executive committee, has brought to our organization a unique combination of energy, passion, intellect, and savvy. She herself is deeply rooted in the Jewish tradition and has raised a family that carries on that tradition in very meaningful ways. She's rooted in activism, working to advance the cause of women, of the underprivileged, and of peace around the world. And she's come to understand the critical role of politics in achieving the goals to which she aspires. Now, you will be hearing a lot more about Carol as we get closer to the actual awards program, or the actual awards section of our program, but I wanted to add my own deep personal appreciation and gratitude to Carol for all that she stands for and all that she has done to contribute to the success of J Street. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our special guest speaker, member of Knesset, Merav Michaeli. I just want to say publicly how much I appreciate, Merav, that you have joined us here this evening, even as the campaign for the Israeli presidency rages in Israel. She will be starting the long road home tonight, immediately after the dinner, to ensure that she is in the Knesset on Tuesday when the vote is going to take place. As a member of the Labor Party in opposition, member of Knesset Michaeli is an unyielding voice for equality, democracy, and a two-state solution. She serves as the chair of the caucus for female Knesset members and is a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. Before joining the Knesset, MK Michaeli was one of Israel's most prominent journalists. She was a regular columnist for Haaretz, as well as a producer of her own current affairs programs, both on television and on radio. In journalism and now in politics, Michaeli is known for her commitment to women's and minority rights, as well as her keen ability to challenge the status quo. This courage runs in her very DNA. In her inaugural address to the Knesset last year, Michaeli shared the story of her grandfather, Rudolf Kastner, a Zionist who saved hundreds of Hungarian Jews from the Holocaust. Years later, Kastner was murdered after right-wing extremists accused him of collaborating with the Nazis. In her speech, Michaeli defended her grandfather for saving lives regardless of what was considered proper. She said, "The position of wanting tikkun olam is often one of weakness. Identification with the distress of others makes one vulnerable. In Israel, any criticism of the state and its doings is often received as nothing less than an act of treason. But the truth is that this criticism comes from a commitment to this place, to Israel, an identification with it. It comes from a desire to make this place the best place to live. This sentiment of wrestling with the land you love in order to make it stronger is one we at J Street share and care very much about. She was with us at the beginning at our very first national conference in 2009. She was at our most recent national conference as a sitting member of Knesset, and we are grateful to count her as a friend, an ally in Israel, and honored to have her with us here tonight. Welcome, MK Merav Michaeli.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. You just made me realize that something a wise man said to me very recently. When a politician starts believing the introductions made on her, she's in trouble. But I am having to leave, that's true, not only after dinner, but right actually after my talk, because yes, we have to elect a president, not necessarily Israel's finest moment, this specific race, but I'm sure it will turn out for the best. So, first and foremost, thank you so very much for having me here. Truly, I had the most amazing day in this conference today, Jeremy, the relentless Jeremy. I had the pleasure of sharing thoughts and ideas and discussions with the most inspiring, impressive people. Thank you for getting me in this situation and getting me to meet and know all these people, which, of course, one of is the amazing Carol Winograd, whom I've had the pleasure of meeting in the last convention, and is so rightfully honored, Carol. Let me just also say thank you to Yael, the newlywed, and you can't escape this. You shouldn't have gotten married. And I want to start with recognizing that we are, a week after Shavuot. I hope you had a lovely holiday. Did you have Tikkun Shavuot? Good. I want to tell you that in Israel, in the past decade, this has been this amazing Jewish awakening that all over the country, thousands and thousands of people are gathering at night, all night long, listening, studying, speaking, and going through this Tikkun Shavuot, which was already, this term was already mentioned here twice tonight, is because it's believed to be a Tikkun Olam. And I have somehow the feeling that the way this has been spreading around Israel in the past years really suggests that there is a good chance that Tikkun Olam in Israel is on its way. I know it may not look like it at the moment. I know I come here and I want to recognize the fact that we are in this moment of disappointment, that the negotiations have collapsed in the way that they have. I don't know how you felt about it to begin with. Were you hopeful or were you skeptic or whatever you were? I know that even though that I had really very little faith in its chances of succeeding, still I had this little hope that maybe, given that Secretary Kerry gave so much of his self, of his time, his effort, his prestige, his personal name, maybe because I think it's so obvious that the situation really is grave and things really have to be done. I had this little hope that maybe this time it'll happen. It didn't, but that doesn't mean anything because it's not the first time that it didn't, so that it really is nothing to write home about. But I think what we need to do is make sure that this not makes us any less optimistic. En contraire, we should take this as an opportunity to double our efforts and to make this a new chance to strengthen our camp, the liberal, the progressive, the camp that wants a peaceful solution for Israel and the region and the neighbors of Israel to have a sustainable peace. This is yet another chance for us to do more for it. Oh, yes. Now, I want to encourage us not to give in to the rhetorics and tactics of fear. As much as I condemn the right wing's way of using threatening and warning of existential threats and of our enemies as fear seedings all the time around us, just as much I want to urge us not to use the one state as a threat, Because while doing so, what we are doing is reinforcing racism, reinforcing the concept that Arabs are a threat to us. And we should not play into this. Of course, fear in general is a very, very bad guide in life, as we all know. And when fear is around, the right will always prevail because their tactics are much more effective against fear. Entrenching is much more humanly, instinctively effective against fear. We should never go down this road. Our role and our responsibility today is to create, yet again, hope. We should give ourselves and everyone else something to look forward to build ourselves the vision of a future, a good future, to make ourselves believe that a peaceful solution, one that will be actually good for everyone, is totally possible. Now, we are good in hope. God knows that the Jewish people have survived on hope for 2,000 years in the diaspora, and it kept us going very, very well. Now, when we came to the land of Israel, and we established the state of Israel, we didn't give up on the hope. We just forgot when we kept saying, L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim, that we are already in Jerusalem. So now, what we must do is redefine the hope. Now our responsibility is to make everyone realize that the current hope is for peace, that is what will reinsure and resecure the state of Israel, and that should be our hope, and for that hope we should be working. I must tell you, there actually is a reason for hope, because for the first time in a long time, there is actually an opposition who is a true progressive alternative. Let me just give you 3 little examples. This morning in the opening plenary session, Bradley Burston he talked about those people in Holon that Israel is shutting down the water for them if they can't pay the bills. That is not true anymore. Thanks to the really amazing efforts of members of labor, I am proud to say, they have managed to stop this. And now it is totally forbidden on every authority to shut down the water for anyone who cannot pay. Now, that came right after a law that I have had the privilege of leading, which is the canceling of debt prison in Israel. For the first time after 60-something years of Israel, we were the last democracy that had the possibility of imprisoning people for civil debt. That is now gone. It will not be a law in Israel anymore. And last but not least example is, I don't know how closely you've been following, if you have, but the way that the opposition has been cooperating among itself, Israeli Arabs, ultra-Orthodox, and center-left progressives, and the way we have cooperated against some of the horrible laws that this government has brought is truly inspiring and giving hope. So now, 2 days ago was June 6th, a date which I'm sure means a lot to all of us. It is the 47th anniversary of the liberation or the occupation, or both, actually. This means that Israel exists twice as long in this situation than it has existed without it. That means that in terms of self-identity, Israel does not know itself in another situation. Israel does not recognize itself without the conflict, without the territories. It means that it will not be that easy to change this situation. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible. 10 days ago, in his West Point speech, President Obama spoke about leadership and how it should see the world. He said, "Leadership requires us to see the world as it is, with its danger and uncertainty. But leadership also requires us to see the world as it should be." Now, in our human limitations, we usually tend to see what we've believed in to begin with. That is how we usually operate. And it's very difficult for us to be, or even to strive to be, something that we cannot see. That is why it is so crucially important for us to be able to create this vision, so all of us can see the thing that we want to work for. We must be able to portray the world as we think it should be, the way we want the State of Israel and the relationship it has with its neighbors and with the rest of the world. We need to be able to portray what it should look like, so we can work in order to achieve it. We actually have quite the opportunity to do this now, with the unity and the reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, and the new government headed by Abbas. What if we see this government not as a threat, but rather as an opportunity? What if we give them the chance to desist from violence, to recognize the State of Israel, to recognize all the previous agreements, and to actually negotiate in one voice, representing all of Palestinian people, enabling a whole solution? What if we give it a chance? Isn't it worth checking? I know many think it's totally impossible because Hamas is a terror organization, and it is a terror organization, and is putting a lot of effort, a lot of money into hurting and attacking Israel and Israeli citizens. It's an enemy, but as we all know, you need to negotiate with the enemy. And not every enemy is Nazi, not as in intentions and not in the capacity it has to cause harm. Now, as Jeremy mentioned, my family history involves negotiating with Nazi officers. My grandfather, Reza Kastner, did negotiate with Nazi officers, and he wrote in his diary and report all the horrible truth about those officers with whom he negotiated. But through those negotiations, he managed to rescue thousands, tens of thousands of Jews and bring them to safe haven. It was worth it. What we also need to take into consideration is that we will have both Israelis and Palestinians recognize each other's trauma. We will have to recognize each other's narrative. We will have to realize that we have inflicted pain and tragedy on one another because our national paths have clashed. We will have to be able to see this, not necessarily take responsibility for it, but to look at it, not to be afraid of it, and then only can we go on to a true reconciliation, which means that we will also have to recognize the right of the Palestinian people to a state. Now, Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, goes on a lot about the need for the Palestinians to recognize Israel as a Jewish state. Well, I too think that recognizing Israel as the Jewish home, as the national home of the Jewish people, will have to be included in a true reconciliation. But if Netanyahu wants this as really a peace-building measure and not just as a PR thing on the way to once again have another obstacle on the way to an agreement, then he needs to start talking about mutual recognition of the both peoples for two states. Of course, I can't leave you without saying that for this, all of these things to happen, we must have more women in the process. Many, many, many more women. Just as J Street have those amazing women, such as Carol, such as Nancy, such as Molly, of course my friend Ellie's here, and many, many others who I already apologize for not mentioning. And you have the pleasure of having the inspiring Jackie Speier, Congresswoman, the Honorable. But it's not enough. It's not enough, not even in J Street. Don't tell anyone I said that. We must have more women involved because women have a different experience in life. They have different skills, not necessarily because we were born with them, but we were forced to find other ways to do things. So we have other ways to do things. And yes. Feminism and feminist way, someone, the moderator today on the 1325 panel quoted to me something that I said, but I will say it again. Feminism and feminist women and feminist thinking can and will change the way we see the world and we run the world, and it will be better by all means. I have been working over 20 years with sexual assault and sexual assault victims, and so I know very well the concept of victimhood. I know how addicting it is. I know how difficult it is to give it up, but I also know how non-constructive it is. And I want to quote my new friend Huda from the panel today. And she said, victimhood becomes a comfort zone. And it becomes the excuse for not doing anything in order to come out of this comfort zone. And this is exactly, unfortunately, what's happening not only to women, but both to Israelis and Palestinians. Now, Huda will take care of the Palestinians. But I want to talk about Israel, that's been entrenched in this role of the victim and strongly and deeply engaged in this competition with the Palestinians over who's the more righteous victim and who deserves more horrible things, deserves to do more horrible things because of its victimhood. Both of our peoples need to give up the victimhood. I can do my part on the Israeli side. We must take responsibility for our strength, for our privileged position, and to reach out to the Palestinians and offer sustainable peace with equality for all. So this is the vision that we all share and will work for, and I'm happy to say we'll make it happen. Have a great evening. Thank you so much. Anyone coming to take me up the stage?
We're going to continue with our program now. So I'll ask everyone to take their seats. I hope you all enjoyed your main course. I'm Victor Kovner, co-chair of J Street PAC and a founding member of the board of J Street. I'm delighted to be here in the Bay Area for our first national gala dinner on the West Coast. And I'm going to acknowledge some members of Congress who are with us this evening. Before doing so, I want to point out that it's possible to contribute to members of Congress through J Street's PAC. We have, as Jeremy noted, 84 senators and members of Congress who are endorsees, and it's important for everyone to support some, and as many of them, thanks to the latest travesty of the Supreme Court, as many of them as you can. I'm particularly pleased to see in the audience this evening some remarkable members from the Bay Area which provides so much progressive leadership to our nation. Particularly Congresswoman Anna Eshoo. Where's Anna? Right over here. Congressman Jared Huffman, I believe, is over here. With us until just a few minutes ago was Congressman formerly from the Bay Area, now a little east of the Bay Area, former Lieutenant Governor John Garamendi. And we're particularly pleased to have with us a newer member of Congress from Southern California who's come up to join us this evening, Congressman Mark Takano. Where's Mark? And the member of Congress who gets the award for the longest distance traveled to be here. And I want to say the member who's in the most difficult and closest of races. And we in the East are so very proud of her, Connecticut's own Elizabeth Esty. Now it's time for our keynote address by another wonderful endorsee, another leader from this remarkable Bay Area, Congresswoman Jackie Speier. And to introduce the Congresswoman, join me in welcoming to the stage a real leader in the fight for peace, democracy, and justice for Israel and the Middle East, our National Finance Committee member, Ellie Friedman.
It's always fascinating to hear someone introduce you. I simply think of myself as a wandering Jew who found J Street, and I follow the arrow. One of the memorable highlights of the first congressional and women's leadership trip to Israel and the occupied territories, which was in 2012, was the visit to Ramallah and to meet the former Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, who we heard earlier today. The trip was co-led by Congressman Jackie Speier and Barbara Lee. As we sat around a rectangular table making introductions, after Jackie introduced herself, Fayyad interjected, "Aren't you the Congresswoman who was at Jonestown Massacre?" Jackie was shot 5 times and waited 22 hours before there was help. I was impressed that Fayyad had done his homework After the official meeting, he went immediately over to Jackie. He put his arms around her, and she put her hands in his. I realized I had witnessed what should be, and hopefully will be, the promised land. They demonstrated to people a mutual respect and connection, an empathy for the right to survive and thrive, and an understanding of a world and a land shared. This humanitarian integrity fuels Jackie and fuels her leadership as a politician, as a parent, as a partner, and as a mensch. And probably Pope Francis and Jackie are the two Roman Catholics that we will use that word. As a representative from California's 4th Congressional District since 2008, which is the San Mateo area and the southwest San Francisco, she has always boldly sought the facts and a deeper truth. She was, not surprisingly, an early endorsee of the J Street PAC, and also we could have not found a better spokesperson for what J Street believes. She also brings her savvy and her unflappable courage to two important congressional committees, the Committee on Armed Services and the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. She does not use a whip, but she is nonetheless the whip of the senior leadership of the Democratic House. She uses, again, her boldness, her outspokenness, and her generosity of spirit. I would say probably the best summation of Jackie was voiced by my mother, who is here tonight, all of her 90 young years. She said, "Jackie is the only politician I trust." Please welcome the truly honorable Jacqueline Jackie Speier.
I think I'll sit down now. Ellie, thank you for that extraordinary introduction. And it's true, I love your mother almost as much as I love my own. And it's thrilling to be here. Phyllis Friedman is 90, and I looked at her tonight and I said, "Phyllis, have you had a facelift?" Because she looks so great. I am so thrilled to be with you tonight. You know, I don't know how many of you have held on to these olive branches that are at your place. And as I walked in here tonight, I thought, oh, this is why I love this organization. Because by this simple olive branch, J Street makes such a profound statement. And when you think about the eagle that represents the United States of America, that proud eagle on every seal of this country, you will note that it has in one of its hands, talons, 13 arrows. And in the other talon, it has 13 olive branches. And the eagle's head is turned towards the olive branches. That's what J Street is all about. So in your 6 years of existence, you have more than 180,000 members. You have 7,500 students of J Street University, and 2,800 people attended last year's conference in Washington, D.C. That is truly a remarkable accomplishment. Now, the clout and respect of this organization continues in Washington and grows around the country. You should be very proud of the work that you have done. You have opened up and deepened our dialogue in Washington about what needs to take place in creating a two-state peaceful resolution in the Middle East. You know, I'm thrilled that you're here in San Francisco. I represent part of San Francisco along with our Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, in the Congress. And give her a round of applause. We just did a woman's bus trip through the Northeast, and I spent 3 days with her earlier this week. But what makes San Francisco so remarkable is that our commitment to family values is so inclusive. And when you think of family values in this area, it's all about keeping our loved ones safe from violence and prejudice. Family values are about creating opportunities for them to succeed and to thrive. And this is what I think all of us share. And this is why we must continue to work to achieve a two-state solution, because it is indeed the only path forward to protect families in the region. I want to thank Dr. Carol Winograd, this evening's honoree, for being so remarkable. And I'll get back to that. To Jeremy Ben-Ami, the founder and CEO of this organization, I can't begin to tell you how much you have elevated the dialogue in Washington by having the guts to do what you have done. Thank you. And to Mort Halperin, who is now the board chair and who made a commitment earlier tonight to serve for 6 years. Thank you, Mort, for your commitment as well. To Victor Kovner, the co-chair of J Street PAC, we all pay homage to you. To Bob Stein, my good friend here in San Francisco, one of J Street's national board members, thank you for continuing your great leadership in our community and for always being there to give me a sense of balance on so many issues. And our KNesset member, how can I follow that incredible leader? I went up to her after she spoke and said, please run for president of Israel. Imagine what we would be discussing if indeed people like her, and if she in particular was at the helm. I want to also thank the leadership of Gordon Gladstone and Rachel Eisner here in San Francisco, who do such a wonderful job for J Street. And my colleagues who are here, know this, that we love J Street, and we will be there for you and with you. There are some who are timid to embrace J Street, but the members who are here tonight embrace you wholeheartedly. So to my good friend Anna Eshu, to our newest member Elizabeth Esty, our newest member Mark DeCano, and to our newest member Jared Huffman, to my great colleague John Garamendi. They have the guts. They have the guts to stand up. And that says volumes about their commitment to a two-state solution in Israel and to the truth winning out. So, in February of 2012, I co-led the Women's Leadership Trip to Israel with Congresswoman Barbara Lee. And on that trip was tonight's honoree, Dr. Carol Winograd. Now, this woman has extraordinary ability. That's why you're honoring her tonight. But I want you to understand how committed she is to J Street and the effort to bring peace to this region. At the time, Carol was on crutches and using oxygen. And we were climbing hills in Hebron. And I thought, how is she going to do this? But she did it. And she continued on the entire trip with great commitment and great zeal. And her leadership and her powerful voice for all of us to listen to is indeed a great gift. So Carol, you are truly deserving of this great honor tonight. So getting back to that trip that we took back in 2012. It was also sponsored by the Women's Donor Network, and Donna Hall, I believe, is here tonight, and they were an incredible part of that effort. Donna, thank you. You know, that trip was all that I had hoped it would be and much, much more. It was not an indoctrination of one view or another. It was balanced, it was nuanced, and it was complex. An effort was made to show the multiple sides of this great and difficult issue. We met with women KNesset members, and we met with business leaders in Ramallah. We met with settlers in Shiloh and Palestinians in Hebron. We went from meetings with the IDF to meetings with Prime Minister Fayyad. And what I learned in that trip was that J Street speaks truth to power. I have some really interesting ethnic roots. And they were on full display during that trip, and I was bombarded time and time again by my ethnic heritage. I'm half Armenian and half German. My grandfather was a German Jew. He was a World War I war hero, and he was taken by the Gestapo as Hitler came into power. I had an extraordinary grandmother who was Catholic and German, who went down to the jail and convinced the commandant to let my grandfather go because he had been medaled in World War I. They immediately left Germany and went by ship to Shanghai to spend the war years there. And when they returned to Germany after the war, they couldn't stay. I remember talking to my grandmother years later, and I said, why was it so difficult when you returned? And she said, it didn't matter. Everywhere we went, we still saw Hitler's face. My mother lost family members in the Armenian genocide by the Turks in 1950. When I was listening to Professor Bauer at Yad Vashem, I was moved by his description referring to Israeli Jewish society as a traumatic society. He said, we cannot live in trauma forever. But in truth, My mother lived in trauma about the Armenian genocide her entire life. Later at Yad Vashem, I remember typing my last name on a computer in their library, only to see numerous references to the name Speier pop up. And then visiting the Armenian quarter, we happened to be there at a time when they were having the one service during the week that they have. And I walked into the Armenian church and felt like I was home. The experience on the J Street trip was rich with stories. Stories that underscore the complexities, the emotional tumult of a conflict there, and the desperate hope for a two-state solution. It was heartbreaking to see how hard it is for Israeli soldiers serving on the West Bank who feel like they must constantly demonstrate their power by waking residents in the middle of the night, by stopping people on the street, including teenagers walking home from school. I heard from Palestinians who only wanted to go about their normal lives, to go to school, to go to work, and raise their families in a place free from endless violence. I also met Israeli families who had been rocketed. I saw the shells that had landed in one community. No one who had seen the threat to Israeli lives can doubt the need for security of Israel or the urgency of peace. The people of Israel showed me just how much the U.S. and Israel have in common. Democratic values that are embedded in the fabric of our nations. And we have something even deeper in common. Both Israel and the United States faced nearly insurmountable odds to come into being and to thrive. Both of our nations aspire to be an example to nations around the world for the values of justice, equality, and democracy. And frankly, both of our nations have stumbled at times along the path to uphold these ideals. Aspiring to be a model to the world just isn't easy. It requires serious reflection and making choices that may not be politically expedient or easy in the short term. Leaders that ask tough questions and refuse to accept an unacceptable status quo make their countries stronger. It's not comfortable to push your country into fulfilling its highest aspirations of freedom, justice, and equality. But leaders like J Street are showing us the way. My travels with J Street reinforced my belief that the most realistic and just path forward to peace is a two-state solution. It is vital to the long-term survival of Israel as a democracy in the Middle East. Like all options, this path is fraught with challenges, and advocating for it will not bear fruit in the short term. But all things worth achieving are worth enduring failures along the way, because through perseverance will come a just peace. I've been encouraged by President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry's leadership on this issue. Secretary Kerry has made Israeli-Palestinian peace among the top items of his agenda, and he's applied his deep knowledge of the Middle East gained from 38 years in the U.S. Senate. He recognizes that the two-state solution is supported by the majority of Israelis and Palestinians. The road has been rocky, but it is not at a dead end. And we cannot ever give up trying to find peace between Israel and the Palestinian people. Secretary Kerry has also been an adamant and consistent advocate for Israel. I share the President and the Secretary's hope that the Palestinian Unity Government will continue to acknowledge Israel's right to exist and abide by previous agreements. If there are really to be two states able to live side by side, both Palestinian states must be involved in that solution. Secretary Kerry received a commitment from Palestinian President Abbas that his new government will be committed to principles of nonviolence, negotiations with Israel, and existing accords, including cooperation and security. He has also assured Israel that the United States will only work with the government if they do not name any Hamas members to cabinet posts and sign on to the quartet principles. Time will tell if these commitments will indeed hold. But let's be clear. If we want peace, expanding settlements does not help matters. Your presence and participation here tonight marks an unprecedented show of American support for pro-Israel, pro-peace, and pro-two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Make no mistake, your pro-Israel, pro-peace mission is helping to change U.S. political dynamics. You have created a powerful voice to support American leadership for peace and two states, and your influence continues to grow. I, along with my colleagues tonight, have supported countless letters, bills, and resolutions reaffirming our commitment for the right of Israel to exist and to thrive. For example, the United States-Israel Strategic Partnership Act recognizes Israel as a major strategic partner of the United States and strengthens multiple areas of cooperation between the two countries, such as energy development, cybersecurity, and stockpiling of war reserves. Perhaps the meeting that most encapsulated how tragic the current situation is was our visit with the police chief in Surat in the southern border. As alluded to before, I saw the missiles that had landed in Israel from the Gaza Strip. And we felt the tension of the possibility of missiles falling again. As the police chief stood there, he stood behind what looked like metal bookshelves of missiles, probably 40 or 50 of them. The police chief lamented about how his family and friends feared coming to his son's bar mitzvah for fear of coming to Surat, where, in fact, missiles may land. It was pretty heartbreaking. More about his story in just a few minutes. Congress must continue to provide Israel with both economic and security assistance to ensure that this region's strongest democracy has the resources it needs to survive and to thrive. This year, we appropriated $504 million to buy and enhance our joint missile defense systems, such as the Iron Dome and David Sling programs, designed to protect Israel from short, medium, and long-range rockets and artilleries. We must also continue to fund social programs in both Israel and Palestine that work to advance peace and understanding in the region and assist those in need of basic services and humanitarian aid. Israel has a right to defend its territories from terrorism, and we must work towards a political solution that will break the cycle of violence plaguing the region. Now, as we know from daily experience from human nature, impulses can lead to disaster. Wisdom, though rarer, is the only path out of the wilderness, and into a state of civil society. This difficulty of overcoming impulse and substituting wisdom has met its greatest challenge in the reality of Iran's efforts to obtain nuclear weapons. Bringing the full force of diplomacy to prevent a nuclear Iran may yet bear fruit. Now, a lot has been said about our negotiations with Iran and our objectives. The unwavering policy of the United States has always been that we will never permit Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon, period. I, like everyone else in this room, supports that policy. In negotiating with Iran, we have always been guided by two principles. No deal is better than a bad deal, and any deal has to be verifiable to a degree that there is absolutely no question as to whether Iran is living up to its side of the bargain. Our approach hasn't been trust and verify, but to verify and verify and verify again. Like all monumental negotiations, there has been a long and complicated process. But the 6-month interim deal reached in November to curb Iran's nuclear program is unquestionably a positive step forward in a situation with very few positive steps to show for all of the efforts. This agreement is a testament to the power of diplomacy and a validation of the strong sanctions that Congress and the administration demanded. Iran would never have come to the table had it not been for those sanctions being in place. But that has brought them to the table, and that is a good thing. The interim deal has required that all uranium that has been enriched at the 20% level be diluted and re-engineered to make it unusable for weapons purposes. The deal has also capped uranium enrichment to below 5%, making it unusable for any weapons application. The IAEA has been given unprecedented access to verify that all agreements are upheld by Iran. Now, there are some of those who still say that's not enough. What happens if it's underground? And that is a legitimate question. But let's not forget that for this 6-month period of time, we have been in there, we have been able to verify, we have been able to dilute and re-engineer, and all of those are steps in the right direction. Now, this agreement lapses on July 20th. Now, there is an opportunity for an extension of this agreement, and I certainly hope that if we don't reach an agreement by July 20th, that we extend this agreement so that more negotiations can go forward. It is in the interests of no one to let the negotiations collapse and to increase the risk of war. A failure of the talks only emboldens and strengthens the positions of hardliners in Iran's clerical establishment against President Rouhani. War won't solve the problem either. As General Mattis, the former commander of Central Command, has said, the military can buy our diplomats some time, but it cannot solve this problem. Only strong diplomacy can achieve what we all want, for Iran's nuclear program to be permanently deactivated rather than just going underground. When I think back at my travels in Israel, though, the first thing that comes to mind is not the grindingly slow wheels of international diplomacy. It's my meeting with the families, both Israeli and Palestinian, going about their lives. It's meeting with women members of the KNesset and representatives of the government, in which we talked about the issues that we all care so deeply about, like women's rights and educational reform and access to housing. It's these personal connections between ourselves as humans that gives us the opportunity and hope to advance our discussions about complex security challenges. In other words, it's progressive style family values doing the hard, unglamorous work of finding a way to live together despite our differences, so that we can build a better world for our children. Now, the rest of that story about the police chief in Surat is the one that haunts me. He told the story about how the man who actually had built his house was a Palestinian, and they had been friends. He had lost contact with him. So one day, he picked up his cell phone and called the number for his Palestinian friend. And lo and behold, his friend answered. And he said, "Well, how are you? And how is it in the Gaza Strip?" And his friend said, "Well, it's not good. We don't get fresh produce and food's hard to come by." And so the police chief said, "I'm going to come to the border." And he came to the border with a donkey, and on the donkey was foodstuff and produce to give to his Palestinian friend. But here's the rest of the story. As they embraced, and he handed over all of this food stuff that his Palestinian friend couldn't get in the Gaza, his son and the Palestinian son stayed behind, nervous, anxious, not quite understanding what was going on. And that, my friends, is our greatest challenge. A whole generation of Israeli youth and Palestinian youth have grown up to hate the other, to fear the other. And that does not serve us well. I'm always inspired and driven by the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, of healing the world. I'm going to close by congratulating J Street for living those words, for being about healing the world, so that beyond that police chief's experience, we can raise another generation that recognizes that peace is truly the only way. Thank you.
And now, we're ready to move to that part of the program we've been waiting for, honoring our very own Carol Winograd. A lot of friends wanted to wish you well, Carol, and I have a letter here from House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi congratulating you on being honored with this award. And I do want to say, for those of you who were not with us in Washington last year, Leader Pelosi came to J Street's conference at our dinner and spoke in a wonderful way about all of our objectives and all we're trying to do. And so she has written to you, Carol. This is portions of her letter. Throughout your years of dedicated service as a member of J Street's Board of Directors, you have worked tirelessly to promote peace, pursue justice, and secure the common good. Your steadfast efforts leading J Street's Women's Congressional Delegation to Israel and J Street's Women's Leadership Forum have given voices to women seeking peace and justice to our nation and around the world. As President John F. Kennedy said, you have truly worked not just for peace in our time, but peace in all time. Thank you again, Carol, for your outstanding leadership and longtime friendship. You are an example to us all. Best regards, Nancy Pelosi. And just one more brief excerpt from another member of Congress, also a J Street endorsee, Congressman Bill Foster, who I presume was selected since he is a member of the very small and diminishing caucus of scientists in the Congress. He was selected in honor of the Winograds, and he writes, Carol and her husband, Terry, have been trusted advisors of mine for some time on a wide range of policy issues, not just limited to the Middle East. Carol is thoughtful and brilliant, and her commitment to helping others truly embodies the meaning of Tikkun Olam. And our next tribute comes from another remarkable leader from the Bay Area, the spectacular Bay Area, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who couldn't be with us and has something to say on film, I am told.
Carol, congratulations on your recognition this year by J Street for your extraordinary accomplishments and commitment to justice and peace in the world. This is a well-deserved achievement. Your philanthropy and involvement with geriatrics research, work to improve the lives of those with Alzheimer's disease, mentorship of students, and promotion of the voices of women in the peace process have made a huge difference in the lives of so many people. I am delighted tonight to honor you in the Congressional Record for your lifelong dedication to Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. I saw this commitment to Tikkun Olam shine during the Women's Congressional Delegation that you, Congresswoman Jackie Speier, and I co-led to Israel in 2012. Your intelligence and direction made the trip a memorable and insightful experience. And I'm proud to say that thanks to your leadership, that trip has set the standard and become the basis for all future delegations to Israel with members of Congress and J Street leadership. I have always felt so much love, joy, and optimism in your presence. Your energy and your spirit inspire me to keep fighting the good fight. I am honored and humbled by your friendship and proud to call you my friend. Thank you for the great memories, and again, congratulations on your award, and I wish you and everyone at J Street a wonderful evening.
And now, please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the stage Congresswoman Anna Eshoo.
Good evening, everyone. It's a joy to be with you. Jackie, thank you for your magnificent remarks. And to my colleagues, Elizabeth Esty, Mark Takano, Jared Huffman, I know that John Garamendi was here. It's wonderful to see you, and welcome to California. I think of all the members that are here, I have the best privilege, and that is that I get to represent Carol and Terry Winograd. They are my constituents. They're the prizes in my congressional district. I, too, went to the floor of the House to place in what's called the Congressional Record. It really is the record of the history of our country. And I'm not going to read what I wrote. I'm going to give it to Carol. But yesterday morning, Carol, I was at a bar mitzvah in Menlo Park, and amongst all of the prayers, there was one that stood out to me. And so I took it out of the booklet. It's from the Modim, which is gratitude. And I thought of you as both the rabbi was praying and there was a response from the congregation. It's short, but I think it's beautiful, and it describes you. Dear God, we know that there is no greater gift than peace. Help us to find the peace that comes from the love of your Torah. Inspire us to banish hatred, war, bloodshed, and bigotry. Help us to establish forever one human family, doing your will in love and peace. Help us to find peace in ourselves and amongst all people. O God of peace, bless us with peace. You have given us the power, O God, to bring peace and justice into the world. May we always love peace and pursue it, and love our fellow creatures. Fill us with kindness, wisdom, and love. Then shall we learn to live in peace. Blessed is God, teacher of peace. God bless you, Carol, for standing for peace and justice, and congratulations to you.
It always strikes me that Carol's commitment to this work is really predicated on both her fierce dedication to the values of liberal humanism, but also on the values of the stream of Jewish tradition that stands for the proposition that it's each individual's responsibility to roll up his or her sleeves and build a better world.
Carol is energized by all of it. The organizations that she belongs to, the organizations that she has helped to found, and J Street being the great, great beneficiary of her intellect, her considerable talents, her passions, her commitments. This isn't any small thing. And for anyone that may be wondering, what's in it for me? What has this woman done for me? She's committed to peace.
Carol is without question one of the most cherished people in my life, and she's been in my life for 10 years and taken on different roles during that period. But it always comes back to just this unconditional love that she has for people in her life and her desire to help them be successful and to make the world a better place by doing so.
When I look at her and the pace of her life and her commitments and her planning ahead and her going from one part of the globe to the other and one part of the country to the other, to me it's exhausting. I wish I had the energy to serve the way she does. I look upon her really as a model for me to something I would like to be more like Carol Winograd.
She's always had this tremendous connection to people and causes, but then she got involved in sort of politics and talking to people on a higher level and trying to influence the big policy issues. And we talk about her as doing hug diplomacy. I mean, she'll walk up to somebody who's in Congress and give them a big hug because that's how she deals with everybody. And it works in the sense that people are people and they understand when they see that you're sincere. And I think she's been very successful and influential by bringing her own personal commitment to the kind of political activity that J Street does.
She's the kind of person who embarks on everything with total enthusiasm, whether that's playing with her grandchildren or taking on a cause or taking care of her health. And whatever it is, she does it wholeheartedly. If there's a chance that something she can do will make a difference, she does it.
She's a fantastic, fantastic mom. I think I'm so lucky, to have someone in my life that I feel like has been nothing but pure love and support. And I think, she always sort of saw what was important, instilled in us what was important. And sometimes, we didn't quite get it at the time, but now as an adult, it's really amazing to see everything that she did for us to really instill, values and a worldly view and try to, craft us into really, adults who care about the world.
Carol, it is a great honor, but also a real pleasure and a real kick to be here seeing you receive this honor. I think you know that all of us here in the room tonight are here because we love the cause, but also because we love you. And you are really a hero to so many of us. So thank you for everything that you continue to do to build a better Israel and a better world.
Carol, congratulations and bravo. This is not something that's just being given. This has been earned by you. So I thank you. The entire community thanks you. Our country thanks you. And I know that there are people around the world that thank you as well. Bless you, my friend.
It's such an honor to behold your being the recipient of this award. I can't think of anyone who's more deserving of it. Your life is just filled with tikkun olam, and you are really making a difference. And may you be blessed with the ability to continue to do that for many years to come.
Carol, living with you all these years has enriched my life in more ways than you can know, in so many ways. And I've loved all the things we've done together, the life we've had, and I love you.
Congratulations, Mom. We could not be more proud of you. I am so proud to be in this family, to be your daughter. You have done fantastic work with J Street, and your entire life is a reflection of your hard work, your devotion, and your amazing character. We love you so much, and we congratulate you on this fantastic award today.
Congratulations, Bobby. We love you.
That was so sweet. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Masal khair. May peace be upon you and bless you, and good evening in Arabic. When I was asked, my name is Huda Abu Arqub. I am from Al Khalil, Hebron. I am one of many Palestinians who've been in this blessed gathering. And I'm one of the people who were given the task of saying something about Carol. And when I was asked to do so, I literally didn't know where to start. I struggled with words and had completely felt the magnitude of what I was asked to do. So I hope you accept these heartfelt and simple words, Habibti Carol. Carol is not a woman who can be presented in few words. She has exceeded time as we know it. In her impactful work, she surpassed every man or woman I know of in her intelligence, in her ability to transform women's fragility into the most powerful yet gentle force of effective change. I've known Carol on her capacity as a board member of an organization I served as an executive director too. And so Carol sits in the room full of women, of men sometimes, Abraham's vision. Sits in a room full of men talking strategy, listens while netting, and then asks the question of vision. So what's the vision? And suddenly, the whole conversation changes. It moves beyond the intractability of conflicts and challenges and clears the path to a more creative kind of conversation. You know, towards the end of a very intense board meeting, she would acknowledge everybody's contribution, brings back the positive energy, and ask us all to dance and have fun while doing it. I'm absolutely emotional. I remember those days, and I cannot talk about them anymore. Carol personally pushed me to reach my potential as a human being. She showed me how to be myself and know what I want. She kept telling me, what do you want? She has affected my life in ways yet to be discovered. I am deeply touched by her strength, amazed by her resilience, and inspired by her ability to live and act as a survivor rather than a victim. She is the soul and heart of a free woman. Rumi, I'm quoting Rumi here, describing someone like her. He said, take someone who doesn't keep score, who is not looking to be richer or afraid of losing, who has not the slightest interest in oneself, in her personality, then she is free. Carol, may you continue to inspire us all to live and act as free people. I love you.
Thank you. I actually like to be able to cry because for many years I didn't have tears because of underlying conditions. So when tears run down my cheek, I'm actually very happy. I can't do that. Thank you, family and friends who are here. And thank you for those who have supported this gala. Thank you, J Street, and thank you, Jeremy. Where are you? Where are you? Thank you for giving me this award. Thank you to the organizers of this summit who have done such an amazing job. Look at this room. And look at this summit today and last night. That was so powerful and so excellent. Thank you. And a very personal thank you to the members of Congress who are dear to me and honor me tonight by their presence. I am a hugger. I love giving and receiving big bear hugs that sometimes mortify my daughters and husband. Excuse me. As you saw on the screen tonight, I even hug politicians. So imagine I am hugging each and every one of you here tonight. Hugging each of you, and feel my hug. Look, we all know why we have these galas, right? And I'm more than willing to be used to advance the J Street mission. Frankly, I'm somewhat surprised to be honored because everyone knows I am a troublemaker. And I've always been a troublemaker. When I was 7, a friend and I would put on hour-long talent shows with multiple singing and dancing acts in our basement, much to the humiliation of my parents and brother. They would have to sit through all of it. We would go house to house, soliciting donations, selling tickets to our show. Good training for this gala. We donated the proceeds to the local hospital for treating children with polio. My brother was particularly embarrassed when I sang. Beautiful dreamer, wake. I'll try again, because I don't get to sing too often. Or I don't make people listen to me too often. Beautiful dreamer. Wake unto me, starlight and dewdrops are waiting for thee. That's it. You didn't think I was going to sing. When I was in college, I worked on the Apache Reservation in Sibique, Arizona. Obviously, what every middle class, upper middle class Jewish girl from New Jersey was supposed to do. I really wanted to go into the Peace Corps, but my mother said I would kill my father with a heart attack. So I went to the Apache Reservation. My roots of social justice are deep. As children, Terry and I imbibed the values of tzedakah and tikkun olam, bettering the world. Our families simply lived them. My father, a surgeon, provided free medical care for those in the community who could not afford to pay. And he served gratis as the doctor for all the clergy in our community. He was a man of great integrity and honesty, who supported our local synagogue but wasn't religious. Every Yom Kippur, when the priestly blessing was given, he protested loudly but silently. The only Kohen able to perform this ritual was a kosher butcher. My father called him the Ganef, a thief, because he overcharged his customers. Watching the butcher piously put the talit over his head to give the blessing, my father would stand up, turn around, face the rest of the congregation, and make faces. Mocking the butcher. The hypocrisy offended him. My mother was an extraordinarily accomplished woman, trapped in her 1950s role. Her job was to make me perfect and to take care of the rest of the community. She initiated local community mental health centers, and when she had breast cancer, she started the mastectomy program in New Jersey, training hundreds of volunteers and visiting thousands of patients. She turned her tragedy into service. Terry's dad's favorite saying was, "Give until it feels good." This advice has become the theme of the Winograd School, elementary school, named in his memory. Terry's mother, too, supported community philanthropy and helped establish community mental health centers. Terry and I met in 1968 and married 4 months later. We don't remember how or when we decided to get married. No proposal, and for sure, no ring. Being together just seemed natural, egalitarian, feminist, and intimate. We were working for a better world and shared the political activism of the 60s. Our family life for the past 46 years has reflected those values. Behind every woman who gets an award is a spouse who cheers her on. And does the grunt work at home. We shared household and family responsibilities equally from the beginning. I nursed, and he changed all the diapers. Terry and I both took leave for each of our daughters. When I became deathly ill in 1995, Terry became my full-time support and caregiver. He still devotes himself to my care, handling the vast majority of home-based tasks, shopping, cooking, and keeping track of finances and donations. He is my tech support and often my secretary scribe. His work enables me to use my energies for tzedakah and justice work. Thank you. Terry and I try to instill these Jewish values into the lives of our children and grandchildren. When our daughters, Avra and Shoshana, were very young, Terry purchased the cans for tzedakah at the grocery store with them, and I spearheaded the Halloween UNICEF collections at their schools. We are fortunate to be able to be philanthropists because of Terry's inspired teaching at Stanford over the past 40 years, as Silicon Valley was evolving. We try to be strategic in our giving, selecting those projects for which the level of our giving can be significant. We sometimes donate anonymously. In the early 70s, we joined a monthly Jewish group whose members are here tonight. The group's focus is integrating our leftist politics with our Jewishness. This group keeps Terry and me close to our 60s idealism as the bourgeois life grows in our lives. After my brother died, I became the professor doctor that he was supposed to be. I taught at UCSF and was the clinical director of geriatrics at Stanford. In the 90s, all of that was taken away from me by the combination of severe illness, discrimination, and harassment. I still had my supportive, loving family and friends, but my work life was over. So you see, my passion for social justice and women fulfilling their potential is grounded in my own personal experience. In 2009, I traveled to Israel, West Bank, and Gaza with the Women Donors Network. I was horrified by the impact of the occupation on Palestinians. This trip catapulted me into J Street, cementing my new career in politics. During the first Obama campaign, we began political giving, a marriage made in heaven for J Street. Whenever candidates call, and as you can imagine, many, many, many do call, we ask, are you endorsed by J Street? This often leads to an in-depth conversations about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, sometimes resulting in new J Street endorsements in both the House and the Senate. When J Street takes members of Congress to places like Hebron in the West Bank, they get the complex challenges of the current situation, as you heard earlier from both Congresswoman Speier and Lee. And they bring this deep understanding back to their work in Congress. The close relationships that J Street now enjoys with women in Congress were solidified during the 2012 Women's Congressional Mission. Collaboration, egalitarianism, diversity of opinion, and relationship building were the hallmarks of that feminist leadership mission. J Street has given me purpose, meaning, and space to have impact as a woman, and I'm just getting started. Women bring different perspectives to leadership, to negotiating, to everything. That's why Nancy Bernstein, Molly Freeman, Joanna Goodwin Friedman, and I are spearheading the Women's Leadership Forum of J Street. At the 2013 annual conference in Washington, we sponsored a session on human security, and before this summit, had a mailing list of nearly 200 women and a few very good men. We are hoping that we will have many more women and very good men join our leadership forum as a result of the sessions today at this summit. Human security expands our usual concept of security to focus on the kinds of security needed for viable daily life, including protection from violence, advancement of political, civil, and economic rights, freedom from religious coercion, freedom from oppression, and equal opportunities for all women. Human security for Israelis and Palestinians specifically includes agreed upon national borders, Israeli withdrawal from occupied territories, and the establishment of stable and enduring peace. The Women's Leadership Forum has two foci. First, to educate about human security while advancing the increased participation of women and civil society at all levels of negotiations. Second, to increase women's role and leadership within J Street. 7 of the 18 J Street National Board members are now women. J Street is at the forefront, promoting women, sending a message to other women that they too can play leadership roles. J Street's efforts to increase women's visibility, to build awareness of the need for 2 states for 2 peoples, and to excite college students to connect to Israel and their Jewish roots have solidified J Street's crucial role among American Jewish organizations. At the last J Street board meeting, I thought, this is the way men and women should work together. What women brought to the table was respected and included. Women felt free to speak and brought up issues that men hadn't identified. The flow among men and women was easy, wonderful, as it ought to be, yet rarely is. And so, the work continues. I'm honored to be here this evening, and I leave you with this. Whether you came here tonight because you are my friends and knew very little about J Street, or because you are already part of the J Street family, I ask 3 things. First, please open your hearts to the legitimacy and poignancy of the Palestinian people. Embrace a 2-state solution as the only way a secure and democratic Israel can survive and thrive. Second, let's work to narrow the economic divide so that people who need more get more, and people who have more give more. Thank you. And third, please continue to give of yourselves, your time, your connections, and of course, your resources to make J Street and its mission strong and successful. I close with the merger poem written by artist and poet Judy Chicago. This poem reflects my vision of what the world could be. And then all that has divided us will merge. And then compassion will be wedded to power. And then both men and women will be gentle. And then both women and men will be strong. And then no person will be subject to another's will. And then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many. And then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. And then everywhere will be called Eden once again. Thank you very much. Shalom. Hugging you all.
Thank you all for joining us this evening, for honoring Carol, and for supporting J Street.